to the Kent Lapp Podcast.
Okay, so you have to find your own news stories.
Yes.
And you have to find 2 a day?
2 a day. I was just talking on my last day. I was talking with somebody from Channel 2. I was like, how many hours do you think of your life have you spent not getting paid for looking for stories? Because that's our whole life, is just talking with people and trying to figure out what's next for the next day.
Sure. When do you hunt down your stories? The day before or the day of?
For me, it really depends. I was a morning reporter for a while, which meant I didn't have to do that as much. A lot of times when you're a morning reporter, what happened overnight is what you report on.
Okay.
And so a lot of times I will do it. I'll try to get a couple of them throughout the week, depending on how timely they are on the day before I go to work. So I've been working Tuesdays and Wednesdays have been my off days. So that Wednesday, I'll try to get in bed earlier, and then I'll spend 2 hours looking for stories that I can sprinkle throughout the week. And then some days I wake up in a cold sweat at 5:30 in the morning because I do not have stories together, and I start there. Sometimes I'll find them in an hour. Sometimes I'll keep on looking until 9:30 when the morning meeting is.
Okay.
So it's just all hours of the day.
Where are you looking?
A lot of times I look on social media. I will say there's a lot of those hip groups, and you can find a lot of what's going on in different communities there.
Mm-hmm.
And then I look through, I go to Google News and I see what the national stories are, see if we can localize any of them.
Mm-hmm.
So, it really depends on USA Today, New York Times, all that stuff, just to figure out what the hot topics are.
Mm-hmm.
I also talk to a lot of sources. So the interview you saw there was a protest with a school board member. So I email a lot of people, hey, anything you've got going on today, or this week or this month, you can tell me about. And then emails. A lot of people email news stations, and I love that, and you should all continue to do it. Even if you don't think it's news, it might be.
Oh, interesting.
So our newsroom email usually goes to everybody, I guess. And so you just find out what's happening.
Someone might be putting on a protest for virtual school, and someone who's maybe putting on that protest or someone involved in the protest might be like, oh, let's email the news station and let them know that we're doing this.
Yes. Or if you know a local news person, or, you follow your favorite people, right? And so people have their favorites in local news too, and we'll get Facebook messages. Yeah.
Okay. So your job is essentially to find 2 relevant, helpful, interesting bits of news that the community would want to hear about, should hear about, would be interested in hearing about, will help inform them. And you find those topics, and then you figure out where you're going to go to report on them. Like presumably a lot of times, like there's something happening if you're going to go out to report on it, right? Like that protest. But is there ever something that you report on that's like, there's not people gathered anywhere, so you just report on it from the station or something like that?
Absolutely. That's a majority of our stories is like that.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
So, before that protest, I had probably done 2 other stories similar to that. And it was just parents are concerned. You see people on these Facebook groups saying, help, I'm a full-time employee that's working from home right now, also having to be teacher, and I am struggling. And then you just, that could potentially be a story. Let's see if other people are thinking that way.
Yep.
And then you see other people are doing it. I'm in church and I'm talking to my discipleship group leader, and she's like, oh man, it's just been so difficult that this is happening. Okay, now I've talked to a real person and it seems more real. Could this be an issue?
Yep.
And then from there you go on and there's a great group called Propel. It's a bunch of parents who just are very active in the community trying to make sure that their kids in metro schools get a great education. And so I always am talking to them, hey, is this an issue? Absolutely. I have somebody who would love to talk about that.
Yeah.
And then from there, we get our interviews.
Interesting. So let's just take your last job, for example. When did you go into work? Did you have kind of a normal, a set hour, semi-normal?
Yes. Well, I came in as a morning reporter, and so I worked from 3 a.m. until 11 a.m.
Okay.
But of course, I would always say if I set up lunch with my husband, Probably noon, but maybe 2. If
Yeah.
breaking news happens, I'll keep you posted.
Okay, gotcha.
So there's always a chance for, and we always got paid for overtime, so it was always great.
Okay.
But
Yep.
so we would have pretty normal 8 hours. It's not like we would go in for 3 and then 3 more and 3 more. But now I worked as dayside for the past 6 months, and so I was about 9:30 to 5:30, 6:30.
Okay. And you were dayside when you reported on that?
Yes.
On that news or event. So if you have, so that was one of your stories you reported on that day, I assume. And then there was another one. Do you remember what that other one was that particular day?
I do not.
Okay. But
I know it was a Zoom interview because I didn't have time.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Which has been great, by the way. With COVID, we're able to do Zoom interviews, which means we're able to reach people that we may not have had time for before.
Sure. Yep. Do you have trouble with people letting you talk to them, letting you in on the information? Do you get a lot of pushback? People just don't want to take the time for it? Or is it like, hey, you're Shelby with, is it WSMV? And everyone's like, oh, awesome. I'd love to, come. I'd love to talk to you. Do you have trouble getting stories because people don't want to talk?
It truly depends on the person. But yes, absolutely. I think a lot of people are apprehensive. A lot of people see some crazy things on news that happens because it's live sometimes. People like coming in on news reports and stuff. But I just, whenever that does happen, I respect people's decisions. So there's a lot of times where I don't get the interview. But I do follow up with, hey, by the way, I want you to go look at my stories if you don't mind. I am a human being. I live here in Nashville. I never want to, make up something. This is about getting, usually when there's a story, it's something that viewers need to know. I mean, that is our thing. We are working for our viewers. So I just say, I think this is important for people to know for this reason. And a lot of times, not every time, but a lot of times people come back and say, you're right, I'll do it.
Okay. Interesting.